coming?
No, she said he may not make it, but if you want.
Oh, okay.
Ready, Nora?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. In accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 at ZAC, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, announcement is made that notice of this meeting has been provided by the Board Secretary to the Daily Record and Star Ledger, published December 13th, 2018, by stating the time, place, and date of all regularly scheduled meetings and by filing, a copy with the municipal clerk. Nora, would you kindly call the roll?
Mr. Berkowitz.
Here.
Mr. Joskowitz.
Here.
Mr. Kaplan.
Here.
Mr. Parikh.
Here.
Here.
And here.
Mr. Prasad.
Here.
Mr. Reddy.
Present.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
We also have with us our board attorney, Mr. King.
Present.
Our board planner, Mr. Chadwick. Our
Present.
board engineer, Mr. Holloway.
Here.
Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we got some resolutions to pass. You don't have to say it. Okay. Okay. Okay, I now open the meeting to the general public. Does anybody in the room present have any business other than what's on the agenda for tonight? I hear none and see none. Okay, let's take care of some resolutions.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I guess.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think
Okay,
yes.
I'll respond to both.
Uh,
Or just chair.
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 I move we adopt application 19:44, a D variance to legalize a second dwelling unit.
Is there a second?
Second ready.
Okay, I can't vote on that, neither can Joskowitz. So, Nora, can you give a roll call
I'm
on
sorry,
that?
who was second?
Ready.
Ready. 1944. Nancy and I can vote.
That's correct. This is,
Joskowitz and Snyder cannot.
Mr. Berkowitz?
Do we have to wait for Mr. Hurricane's vote on that for it to pass? Do we need 5 votes?
You need 5, it's a D, correct?
No, I don't think so. We have enough people here,
Oh,
correct?
it's actually, it's more.
No, it's all right, we're memorializing it, we're
Oh,
not
so-
passing
right,
it.
So we just need a majority, memorialization, okay.
Mr. Berkowitz?
I vote yes.
Mr. Kaplan?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
And Davey's not here. Okay?
Okay,
I also further move
No.
application 1948, C variance to construct a two-story addition, and application 19:49, a C variance to construct an open deck for passage.
We're doing one at a time.
Second ready.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
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 We don't have to roll call on that, do we? Anybody opposed?
No.
All right, memorialized, and then application 1947?
I move application 1947, which is a preliminary and final major site plan C and D variance and major soil removal for truck storage yard be granted.
Second.
Joskowitz.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We also have to approve minutes of September 4th.
Motion to approve?
Second Joskowitz.
Okay. Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes care of that. All right, we're going to start calling up cases. The first case is application 1957, Paula Tavares Greco. Hi. Come on up. Are you the only one who's going to be speaking?
Yes,
Could you raise your right hand, ma'am? Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board is the truth so help you God?
I do.
And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Paula Tavares Greco. Paula is Paula. Tavares is Tavares -Greco.
And you're the owner of the subject property?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. You're sworn. You may sit. And just please, when you speak, just speak into the microphone.
Okay, and you're looking to legalize a shed,
Yes.
and is it build an 821 square foot patio and walkway?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the project and the need to do so?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I purchased this house 2 years ago. The only occupants is me and my son. My son now is 8. When we bought the house, there was this existing walkway on the side and the rear, and also the shed was already there. This is actually a picture with the shed here, which is from the previous owners of the house when they bought it.
Do you have a printed picture? Is that your only picture?
That's the picture they left me.
Okay.
So even the people that sold me the house already had the shed when they
We
bought
would
it.
need to move that into evidence.
Oh, okay, I had no
So,
idea.
can we move that into evidence?
Sure.
Okay.
You'd like to?
So you'd mark
keep
that
it?
as A1?
On the back.
Write down.
Oh, okay.
A1.
Just write it,
I
just
don't
write
have
it
a
with a pen.
She
Oh,
doesn't have
thank
any
you.
driveway.
Oh,
As you can see, I've never done this before.
Gotta start
don't
somewhere.
worry about it. Yeah.
The walkway is actually one of the selling points for me because my son was 6 at the time. We have the entrance, you had to go up the stairs. And we have this back door that has this walkway that essentially go all the way around the property and goes into the driveway. So for me, when it's snowing, it's an opportunity for me to clean up, and that would be an emergency exit, so my son doesn't have to run the steps. It was already there. Now this year, so 2 years later, essentially there was a lot of, some of the pavers were broken and there was a lot of weeds, and that's what prompted me to replace them. So what I did actually is replace them with the same type of pavers, so I could get that clean out of the, with the weeds. And I've made a little bit of an extension, which now looks like a patio, and that was just because the shape was strange that we had before. Instead of having an L shape with the pavers, I made sort of like a triangle. When I came to the zone, what I learned is that the walkway that was already existing was done illegally, and that the shed as well, and that's why I'm here.
Any
Do you have
questions
any
from the
idea
board?
when the shed was built?
It was
Anything?
definitely older than 10 years because of this picture here.
Did you replace the shed, or it's the same
I've never
shape?
replaced the
It's in
shed.
good shape.
It's still there, yeah.
Okay.
The door is a little.
It shows that you want to be 0 feet off the line, but the survey shows it a couple feet off the line. So if the board approves this, I would just say it's 2 feet from the, there's some notes here that somebody scribbled in.
Yeah.
It looks like 2 feet, and that's good enough if it's not going to be moved.
Mm-hmm.
Are these pavers in concrete, or are these pavers
In dirt.
dry laid? If you put a hose on it, does the water go through them?
No, because
It
that
runs
that
off?
work was already done. So essentially, I just replaced the paper, so it never accumulates any water or anything like that.
Not easy to
Oh.
pay
You
about
missed
that.
my
but-
point.
No.
Yeah, I don't
We're
understand.
trying to see whether water goes down through or not. It's to your benefit that it does.
I think so because I
Okay,
don't.
good.
I never saw it a puddle or anything like that.
What's
Okay.
in between
Okay,
them?
but-
It obviously runs through it then.
What's between the pavers?
Is it sand, is it like?
Well, she said weeds were growing there before.
Yes,
so-
I'm
So
not
when
a
you took them out, they
construction
were just-
person.
they
So
weren't
that
in
was
s-
the whole idea. I wanted to put sealants or something like that.
They're not in cement. When you took them out, you were able to lift them out?
Yes.
Okay, and you didn't have to have a crowbar, you didn't have to get a jackhammer, you could just,
Yes, a friend of mine did it actually. So
And so when you
Yeah,
put them
so
back
they-
in, that's exactly the same installation process
Yes.
you used?
yes.
Just a hammer and,
Yeah,
And
right
just
now that's,
placement.
yeah. Right now they're still loose because I figured if I have to remove them, then I'll just leave them the way they
but
are.
you're not gonna put any cement in between them, you're just gonna put sand in between them,
The idea is to seal it.
with sand.
I don't know, is that what you recommend? I know nothing.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
you
usually
do.
yeah,
years.
that's what you,
Okay, then
yeah.
send it in.
And that just tightens it.
Yeah.
It's so
You
that
don't want
the
it to
water has a
shift.
place to go.
Oh, okay.
And you want them to shift at the
I
same
mean,
time.
if you seal with concrete, you can have
Oh, okay.
water accumulating, and that's gonna
Yeah,
be a
that makes
problem.
sense, yeah.
So if you have sand that goes through this, water goes through,
Okay.
then you don't have a problem.
Now I understand. Sorry.
Any other questions from the board? No? All right, is there anybody in the audience that has any questions of the testimony that was given by this applicant? I hear none or see none. Would you like anything else to add?
I also understand that there's a part of the driveway that's also
Less than 5 feet.
That was also not part of it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's in the zoning.
Yeah.
It was also there. So I would like to adjust that as well if possible.
Yeah, I mean, and that was already there,
Yeah.
correct? When you got the house?
Yes.
Yeah, that can be added to it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to add that to the resolution.
So you're gonna amend the resolution to incorporate the extra asphalt? It's asphalt?
The
Yes,
asphalt
it's
on the
asphalt.
driveway?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who has, who wants to speak in support of this application based on the testimony given? Anybody here to speak in opposition of this application? I hear none and see none. Any comment from the board? No? Any comment from the board?
I would just say, I'm in favor of the application. I think, first of all, there's no neighbors who are here complaining about something that's been there for more than 10 years.
Yeah,
I think it's okay to leave things the way they are.
Okay.
The understanding that anything that puts down to between the pavers is
Thanks.
sand or water soluble.
Mhm. Okay. Anybody on the board would like to form a resolution, please?
Sure. Application 19:57, Paula Tavares Greco, 217 Everett Road, Block 218, Lot 2, Zone R4. Recommend granting a C variance to legalize an 80-foot shed and an 821 square foot patio. And was there anything else?
Yeah, the driveway.
And the driveway, and walk contrary to section 430-35, columns 8 and 9.
Thank you,
Second,
Mr.
ready.
Okay, motion made, second. Any
Ready.
need for discussion? Nora, would you kindly call the roll?
Mr. Berkowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Jaskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
Mr. Parikh.
Yes.
Mr. Prasad.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Ms. Snyder.
Yes. Okay, your motion has been carried. It'll be
Thank you.
memorialized in 2 weeks.
Wonderful,
Thanks for
thank
coming.
you. What do I give this to?
Give it to Nora, please.
For the record, Chairman Ira Kane is now here.
Thank you. Good job.
Nope, that's it.
So did they win? Always travel with this much stuff?
I know,
Did they win?
I just came from work.
Oh,
Oh, shoot, you know what? I have to give him my stuff.
All the stars.
Here. You have your stuff?
Oh, I just took it up at Davies. Thank you.
That'll work. Now.
We just did the first one.
Yep.
Everything else is done?
No.
No, but I
Just
mean,
that.
all this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all done, yeah, it's all done.
Do me a favor, please. Okay, fine. Okay, we're gonna go with case number, application 1913, Petrol Hub, seeking C variance to legalize signage.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joseph O'Neill of Garofalo O'Neill Ruggiero, here on behalf of the applicant Petrol Hub. This is to legalize signage at the existing gas station. This site was subject to an application back in 1988 that approved the canopy. And at that time, the signage variances were different in town. There was no mention in that approval of any signage on the building or canopy. But the canopy itself was approved. The canopy had signage on it. It was a mobile gas station, then it became a BP gas station. And when BP was changed out, they came out and decided it'd be a good idea to rip their signage off and cut down the pylon sign that was in front of the building. So that was replaced with the existing pylon sign and the existing signage, at which time a violation was issued because our sign company did not get a permit. He is here tonight to be screamed at. The application itself concerns legalizing the signage because there's no record of the approval of the signs on site. However, the signs do comply with the one difference being the signage on the canopy is a little too large. We'll hear some testimony about that shortly. But everything else complies with the regulations, including the size and number, but no sign permit was issued or sign denial for the permit was issued. So we're here to put on testimony for all the signs and legalize everything, make sure everything's part of the application. I do have, as I mentioned, the sign contractor is here, who can get up and tell you basically that he was unaware that you needed permits to reface signage, so he did not get the permits. But be that as it may, I would prefer, with the board's permission, to get right into Ms. Gregory, our witness, our planner this evening, who will go over the variance that we need.
Is he gonna add, is there gonna be value added in him telling us that he didn't get a permit?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Anybody have any problem with going right to the planner? No. Looks like you're okay.
All right, Ms. Gregory.
Ma'am, you raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony you're about to give before the board is true, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Yes, Catherine, and that's spelled Kathryn, last name Gregory, Gregory. Business address is 96 Limber Plaza, number 350 in Portland, New Jersey.
Okay, and you're a
Licensed
plan-
professional planner and certified.
And all your licenses are in full force and effect?
Yes.
And you've been certified, or you've been sworn as an expert and given expert testimony either in this town, Parsippany, or other towns?
I have in this town as well as many others in the last 20 years.
Okay, thank you. And she's sworn and qualified?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Ms. Gregory, you had a chance to examine the application that's here before the board this evening?
Yes,
You've also examined the local ordinances and master plan.
yes.
I wonder if you can go ahead and describe for us what it is we're seeking here this evening and how it corresponds to what is permitted there on the site.
Sure. Before I get into my testimony, I'd like to hand out a photo exhibit, and I hope I have enough copies.
We'll share, don't worry
I
about it.
Is that what, A1?
apologize. So,
A1? Joe?
A1 for this evening?
A1? Yes, okay. All right, so for the record, while it's getting handed out, A1 is a photo exhibit that was prepared by myself. It's an 11 by 17 sheet. It's entitled Existing Conditions and Surrounding Neighborhood Characteristics, 261 Parsippany Road, Parsippany, New Jersey.
Sure.
Seems like there's enough.
Okay, great. Just to explain what's on the photo exhibit, I have a series of different signs that were, pictures, that some were taken by me, some were actually snapshotted from Google or Bing, one of the map companies. So it's sort of a myriad of the mix of all of those things. I like to use those as a tool, and then I go out to the site myself to see what the existing conditions are, if they match. So what you'll see across the top is 3 pictures of our site. I took the ones on either of the bookends on the first row, and the middle one did come from Google. So that is the existing condition today, and as you can see by my photos, that's exactly what is represented in the Google. On the second row, I have in the middle an aerial photograph that was taken from Bing. On the right-hand side, there is another gas station that is further up Parsippany Road, which is the Bonoco station, and that is represented on Bing. And then when you go to the lower right-hand corner, that photo was taken by myself. So I just thought that quite honestly, the quality of the pictures that I was finding on streetscapes in Google and Bing were a little bit better than the ones I took. I guess it was overcast that day. And then on the left-hand side, we have the Shell station that's also up Parsippany Road. And again, the lower left-hand photo is the one I took, and then this one is from Google Maps. So you can see that there are a number of gas stations in kind of in the immediate area. The last aerial on the bottom there actually indicates where they are. 261 Parsippany Road is indicated with the sort of the red dot. And then when you move to the right, the first yellow X is where the Shell is, and then the second yellow X is where the other gas station is. So this just gives you a little idea of what the signage is in the surrounding area with regard to gasoline stations. And so what's interesting about this is that there are actually separate signage regulations for gasoline stations. And with that said, we do need a variance for each of the canopy signs. We have confirmed that the sign on the building is conforming and also the freestanding sign is conforming. The building sign is allowed to be 20 square feet at 17.5 square feet. The freestanding sign is permitted to be 32 square feet, and that is exactly 32 square feet. But we are a little bit over on the canopy signs. I invite you to take a look if you have, which is a little bit more of a close-up, although I don't have a black and white version, of these. If you have the sign permit application in your packet, the last page shows more of a close-up of the signs that we're actually asking for the variances for. And what you'll notice is that when you're measuring the size of a sign, usually you take a box, right? Biggest dimension, height, biggest dimension, and the length. So what we have here is also a logo that's located kind of on the top of the lettering for Petrol Hub. And we have one of those, the gas nozzles that are at the top, so it's a little bit of a logo versus just having, you know, the sign that says Shell or BP or some other gas station. So essentially, we're oversized because we have this logo that's located on the top of the lettering. We are permitted to have 10% of the canopy face be a sign on that canopy. On one side, which would be, let me just make sure that the front canopies, both of these signs are 17.5 square feet, but the faces are actually different. The front side is shorter, and then the side is actually longer because it's wider to go over the gas pumps and then the cars. So that side is actually wider. So we are actually seeking a variance for 17.5% on the side, on the front, and then 13.26% on the side. So those are the variances that we're seeking this evening. So when we take a look at the photo, we don't believe that this is oversized per se, and within the context of that sign and the dimensions, we actually do have a void. So I understand limiting the percentages, but in this case, considering that they're both at the corner, number one, it probably makes sense for both of them to be the same size. I think they would look kind of funny. Even though one side is shorter than the other, that one would actually be smaller than the other. And like I said, part of the contribution of that is the fact that we have this gas nozzle that's located as a logo on top of the sign. So with that said, in terms of proving the positive and the negative criteria for a bulk variance, I believe that, I think we promote a desirable visual environment, which is purpose I. And I think that, you know, the little gas handle adds an element of interest to this actual sign. I think it makes it, you know, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And then in terms of the negative criteria, I don't believe there's any substantial detriment to the public good. Obviously, the public has been accustomed to signs that are located on gas stations that are indeed larger than perhaps what is permitted. I didn't print out enough, but I actually do have a screenshot from 2013 of the BP.
Is that in the application you want to
No,
mark that A2?
no, it's not. This is actually something I really found late today, so I do
A2.
apologize. But I can hand this around to the board so you can see that
Joe,
what the
A2.
signage is
A2.
for A2. I'm sorry, let me label that. I apologize. Right. And so you'll notice that before we had our application for the freestanding sign, which we have one sign that's connected, they actually had two signs. Now, I don't know exactly how big they are, but just by looking at them, I believe that they're probably bigger than the 32 square feet combined together. And we're replacing the sign that was above the garage doors. And BP also had the star located on both sides and the front. So instead of actually having it on 2 sides, they had it on 3 sides of the canopy. So we're actually reducing that by only having 2 instead of having 3. So I'll hand this around to the board as an exhibit. Okay. And again, I'll go back to the fact that while I do not have the exact measurements, when I think you take a look at the signage that's located on the other gas stations, I would say that we are comparable, if not maybe even smaller, particularly when I look at the Winoco sign. I mean, obviously I looked at it in person, but no, I do not have the exact dimensions. But what I'm telling you is that I don't think we're out of character with the signage that's located on the gas stations in the immediate neighborhood. In terms of your master plan and zoning ordinance, I did take a look at your master plan reexamination. The last one was done in 2014 by Burgess Associates. And there was one proposed amendment to development regulations that included sign requirements, and that was number 13. And it said the ordinance should amend awning sign colors and sign area calculations to permit greater flexibility in sign design. So I talked about that a little bit before when I talked about the gas nozzle, and we have a little bit of a void in that area. So I think that we do actually meet the intent of your ordinance. I think we meet the intent of the master plan. So I think that we meet both the positive and the negative criteria for the granting of the sign variance application for the canopy.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. I have no more questions for this witness.
Any questions by the board?
I have one question, if I may. Did the issue of this actually freestanding sign location or setback or height, was that something as part of your analysis? I know you talked about the sign
freestanding,
height.
like where
The location, I just.
my understanding is that
didn't
the
have survey.
sign location didn't change. But
So, yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean, from BP, yes, right? From BP, it's the same location, but this used to be a mobile where
Right.
the sign was at the corner, the actual Adelphia, Parsippany
Right,
Road
right.
corner,
Mhm.
which is totally opposite from where it's sited now. And so, to Chaz's point, I'm just wondering what was the rationale of moving that sign over there? And I mean, in retrospect, you can't speak on behalf of BP, but my concern is that it's not encouraging Parsippany Road left-hand traffic pattern to pull into that opening there, where the freestanding sign is.
meaning if you're heading north,
If you're heading, correct, if you're heading north.
the gas station will be on the left, right?
Correct.
Heading north, it's on the left.
That's right, and
So
that's a
you're saying
double
that
yellow.
you believe that this sign is not gonna help them
Right.
turn in?
To meter traffic going in that way, as opposed to when it was a mobile sign, and it was at the corner of Adelphia and Parsippany Road, the location of the sign was intuitive for traveling traffic to make that left at Adelphia and then into the gas station.
I'm just seeing if
Well,
there's a
the-
setback requirement, by the
The
way.
signage
So-
is located in this, it was replaced in exactly the same spot
As BP.
as BP, which is what the
Right.
current applicant took over when they took over the station. So there's been no change, there's no change in the location of that sign from what was
And-
there before.
And that was a permitted location, Mr. O'Neill?
That's, well, we don't have a lot of
Yeah.
information about that,
Okay.
and that's part of the problem with this application.
Right.
We actually got a note from the zoning office that there were too many signs,
Mhm.
but our analysis with Ms. Gregory was looking at the local ordinances, we didn't agree with that.
Right.
And that's
Um,
because we have 2 frontages.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Right,
we're
understood. I
permitted
used to live on Adelphia, so
Oh,
just
okay.
for full disclosure, I'm pretty familiar with this property. And I
Okay.
remember the mobile sign had that stationary sign located at the corner of Adelphia and Parsippany Road. And I'm just, that would be my only concern in regards to the location of that freestanding
Well,
sign.
Just by quoting what the setback requirement is, it says 10 feet is the setback requirement from all property lines. So I'm not sure if, you know, I didn't measure the corner piece before there's the driveways, so I don't know if we could have it be 10 feet at that location and not need a variance. I didn't do that analysis because I didn't know that was gonna come up, but.
Okay.
But just so everyone knows that that is the setback requirement. So, and quite honestly, I didn't measure where the existing sign is now. Typically, when you replace a sign, and we replaced it with a conforming size sign, we wouldn't necessarily need to get a variance for that because the sign pole would be existing.
Yeah, I'm just concerned from a queuing standpoint, because even as you look at the property where the sign stands, that's an exodus, that's an egress, right? So I'm just thinking,
Well-
what's the rationale of that sign being there, as opposed to queuing traffic coming on the southbound side to be able to more promptly pull into that lot
I'm afraid, Ms. Snyder,
appropriately?
we can't address that. I just reviewed that last approval from 1988 again, and it was mostly concerned with the canopy at that time. We really don't have any testimony to offer as to why BP relocated the sign. All we can say is that this applicant replaced the sign where it was cut down by BP, hooking back into the electricals that were there. So it worked for BP, and we're hoping that we can continue to have it work for us.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chairman, the question is, I mean, did BP get that, I mean, was that approved, that site location? I don't know, I don't have any historical experience.
Resolution
We
mentioned
have
about the
no
sign, just a caveat.
further
Okay.
information to offer.
Got
I mean,
it.
this application is to clear up and fill in holes. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Okay.
So the only question I have on the application itself says, is minimal site work contemplated at the property? What was
There's
that?
actually no site work.
So if the board approves it, it's the
As is.
signs, period.
Just the signs. There's no
Fine.
approval. The only thing was putting the sign back where BP cut it down. So that's what that was referencing.
That we
to.
vented pretty good.
Any other questions by the board? Any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? I hear none and see none. No other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Mr. Chairman, and we'll rest on the application. This really is a cleanup of something. I apologize again to the board for having no historical information on this, but there was really nothing that we were able to obtain from any department to help us out with this.
Do we, okay, did I ask? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application, in support of this application? I hear none, see none. Do we need to go into conference?
It's just the canopy that we're talking about?
And it's all the signage, Ms. Snyder. It's that, that's in the same spot that the BP was, so we don't know, the town doesn't have a record of all of these signs in any approval, as you can see from the 88 approval.
Well, my next question is, will somebody make a recommendation on this?
I will.
Mr. Jaskowitz?
This seems to be de minimis in nature, cleaning up some old kind of bookwork. Doesn't seem to be a safety issue. There's no one objecting to it, so I will be voting for it and recommending such.
Someone like to frame a resolution, please?
I will do it. Application 19:13, Petrol Hub, 261 Parsippany Road, Adelphia Road, Block 376, lots 11 and 11.01, under Zone R4 and OS, to issue or grant a C variance to legalize the signage.
What's your concern?
Any discussion? Nora, please call the roll.
Mr. Berkowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Jaskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
Coming from the other way.
Mr. Preet.
Yes.
Mr. Prasad.
Yes.
What about over here?
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Ms. Snyder.
Yes.
Chairman Irick.
Yes.
Thank you,
Result is
everyone.
the variances are granted. You know, we'll memorialize
Oh, we
this
got
after
testimony in the case that you did.
2 weeks.
You just can't pass it.
Are you gonna stay up here for 1918?
Yes. We could have just a minute to set up?
Oh, sure. Based on that, I'm gonna go to a little more. Just make that announcement.
their signage is so much smaller.
Taking a break.
Especially with Shaw.
Well, the whole place is metered.
Yeah.
Taking a break here. Breaking yet.
Joe, this is a.
Yeah, I think this one's coming up next.
Joe, did you get that, get to review that resolution?
Yeah, well, when that comes up, you can, yeah, you know, you can listen to the.
Basically tell the people traffic this way and that way, hey, I got a sign, and oh, by the way, you still have a time
guess.
to make a left. Oh, and by the way, you have a right, you know, you have a chance to go appropriately inspect this. That's what it really should be.
I didn't hear from you.
So what case we doing next? 48.
So here, what you're doing is, you're allowing like a one-way traffic pattern, to literally stop midstream, wait for the appropriate, probably, you know, chance getting hit on collision with exiting traffic here. And, you know, signs are to keep traffic. I just think it confuses.
Yep, you got that for me? Thank you.
Stop. And I bet you EP get approval.
There was nothing in the old board resolution.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Hell yeah. This is, this is, he's calling 1918 Pacific Outdoor. That's the, outdoor side.
Pacific Outdoor.
They came back, they were supposed to reduce the sign. Or you want these off. Reduce the sign.
Yeah.
We're gonna reduce the sign.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna reduce the sign.
The height of the sign. Joe, who do you have left?
This
Hmm?
would be exhibit, and then I believe we already did planning. We'll refresh that.
Okay. And then who else, and you have anyone else?
No.
Okay. There's a little sign, green, piece of green, that's,
I find out.
oh, there's
I'll just leave it out now.
There is one in there?
another hand up. That's how good it is, you don't even see it. And they're pretty crazy.
This is gonna take long.
They're
This
crazy.
is gonna take way short.
This is amazing, the LED, is it gets darker.
Yeah, they get brighter.
No.
They get
Where's the
brighter.
other one now? Excuse me.
Okay, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, members of the board. Joseph O'Neill for the applicant, Pacific Outdoor. We are here on a continuing application. The board heard a lot of testimony. We also heard comments from the public regarding this sign, and we were asked to prepare a photo exhibit showing what the sign would look like, which we have done, which we will get to in just one moment. But just to remind you where we're at, we have reduced the height of this sign down as much as we can. We'll hear some testimony about that. And we've also eliminated the side of the sign that was facing the members of the public who were complaining about possible visibility from that sign. It was going to be a static side of the sign. That has been eliminated now. So just to get into where we're at, I'll go ahead and introduce again Mr. McDermott.
Gore.
Gore, I'm sorry.
And you've been previously sworn, correct?
Correct, yeah.
You want me to swear him again? Mr.
No, I think we're fine with that, Mr. King. But, Mr. Surratt, will you just go ahead and we'll mark this as, I believe, we're at A4?
Yes, A4 will be entitled 60-foot billboard from 500-foot distance. And this is a
Take the microphone with you.
and as that's being passed out, I'll just describe what we did. It's a Google Street View, and we superimposed the proposed billboard sign. So what the image, the center of the page is the northbound direction of I-287, and you see up at the top left a beige rectangle, which was representative of the sign face that is proposed. And the location, we reduced, oh, wait till everybody gets one.
A little hard to see.
It's right here.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, right above the tree line.
Gotcha, okay.
Right above the trees.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. So we're looking north.
Looking northbound, correct.
And the-
Traveling northbound.
Okay?
And as previously, the sign was two sign faces, northbound and southbound sign faces. The southbound, traffic driving southbound, that sign has been eliminated. That's just the static sign. The only sign now proposed is the sign that you would see if you're traveling northbound on 287. That sign face has been also reduced from 60 by 16 to 48 by 14. That reduces the display sign area approximately 50%. And we also inclined the sign to be visible only to traffic driving on 287 North. Originally, the sign was perpendicular to the roadway, so there was a chance that potentially you could see it at an angle from the Ensign Road side. So we have since aligned it better to be directionalized towards the northbound traffic only. Originally, also, the sign was at 75 feet overall height. That's been reduced down to 60 feet, and that puts the bottom of the sign right at the top of the tree line. So any lower than that, and the sign face would be obstructed by the existing trees on that right-of-way line with 287.
Diego, the house is to the west. Because of the screening both with the building and the tree line facing that road, it's your opinion that they can't see the structure of the sign, correct?
Yeah, specifically the Jacksonville Drive homes. There is no visibility to the sign structure or sign face from those residences. We were going to prepare an exhibit to show that, but again, it would just be really a picture of the existing trees that exist behind those trees between Ensign Road and those homes.
And because of the angle of the sign, the light, there'll be no visibility of that light shining into it.
Correct. No spillage, no impacts from lighting. They're actually evergreen trees for the most part that exist on that side. So if anything, and this is specifically the trees between the homes and the Ensign Road. And again, with the sign face being directionalized towards the road, if you see the structure, you might see it, depending, I guess, there's chances it breaks in the trees and whatnot, but for the most part, the sign structure itself and the sign face will not be visible.
Wintertime at night, no issues?
No.
It's really hard to gauge the intensity of this lighting, just seeing this. So, let me ask you this. On 287, there are two signs similar in nature at mile marker 55 in Bergen County and mile marker 10 in Somerset County. Is it fair to say that the intensity of this signage lighting is going to be relatively comparable to those two?
Not knowing the specifics of those signs, I would still have to say yes, because the signs, they have to comply with the Outdoor Advertising Agency of America, their guidelines, which kind of restrict things of that nature, specifically the light levels that can be emitted at night and during the day.
Well, they're intense. The lighting's intense. That's, I'm trying to gauge that.
I don't know if
can't
those
gauge
signs
that in
specifically
this
are in
picture.
compliance, but the guidelines that exist do limit it to an area, to a degree that it shouldn't have an impact, because again, the intent is to not be distracting to drivers, specifically at night.
Those are larger signs. Are you familiar with those signs?
I'm familiar with them, but I don't know the specifics of their size or who even
Certainly
operates them.
taller signs.
Well, they're definitely, the
Yeah,
exit 55 one, mile marker 55 is definitely taller.
yeah.
Not sure about the Easton Avenue one.
Okay, then I don't know.
Shorter and the
And-
same size.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I
We
mean,
did have some testimony about light levels reducing over the
I heard it.
duration.
Mhm.
Is there any noise or auxiliary generator or something of that nature associated with the sign?
I'm not sure if this sign has no generator, so no noise is associated or anticipated with the sign.
I have a question. I'm not sure who to ask it or how to ask it, but when driving down the highway, on this highway you're going 60, 70 miles an hour, hopefully.
Sometimes.
I'm saying, unless you're, yeah, and everybody's still passing.
Unless it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Has there been any, I don't know if algorithm is the right word, but as to how big a sign or lettering has to be for a driver to be able to safely read it while still driving and seeing the road?
Specifically for the informational signs, so those yellow LED light signs that you see,
For any sign, really.
those
It's just-
specifically have guidelines from the DOT that they have to comply with. This, since it's advertising, the intent of any advertiser is to be seen and be readable and be visible. So there aren't specific guidelines to that nature, and it's up to the advertiser to
So
really.
nobody's ever calculated what's a safe size to read at a safe speed?
The DOT does have guidelines as far as the sign size, the sign setbacks, and where signs are permitted. They do their own studies as part of,
But they wouldn't apply to this sign.
the DOT does, when the applicant submits an application, and I believe we do have a permit.
Yeah, there's
for
a
the-
permit here.
The DOT does their own investigation and
Okay.
studies to make sure that the sign complies with their requirements.
There is no
Regulated.
DOT regulation on this letter size. I mean, you could put hieroglyphics up there, you can put anything you want, pay your rent. It's simple as that.
So the DOT doesn't care?
They want to cite them. Cite them
Okay.
meaning location along the highway and with respect to their ramps
Yeah.
and the size, and there's some construction regulations. But other than that, the messages, we've already gone through, you do the 8-second or greater, right?
That's correct.
And the public advertisement and public events if available. And you're gonna give us the specifics on the angle of the sign how it's gonna relate to 287 right away.
Yes.
You gave me, you changed the angle so you can't see it from Lake Parsippany, but you didn't say how much. And the static is out. And I think there was some testimony that this is the modern version where the lights dim in the dark and
Yeah.
increase in the daylight, correct?
That is correct.
And adjust as the conditions change.
Just to ambient light levels.
Yep.
And Mr. Chadwick is correct, it's very heavily regulated because of its placement along the roadway. However, that regulation does not extend to content regulation. So, the dimension, I'm not aware, and Diego, you can confirm this for me, there really are no regulations that apply to what the picture looks like, what the signage looks like.
Yeah, and I believe that falls under a freedom of speech. That's why there's no specific regulations to govern letters and that nature of what's displayed.
Can you elaborate on the angle you?
Yes, so I believe it's 15 degrees angle towards the road. So before it was perpendicular at 90, so it's 15 degrees less than that.
Any other questions of this witness by the board? Any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? Please come forward. I just want to remind you of the rules here. This is your opportunity to ask questions. I know there was a member of the public who filed a complaint against me because I was abusing them, which I was not doing. So I just want to make it clear, this is your time to ask questions, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
And ma'am, for the record, can you just state your name?
My name is Deborah Lovett, Debra Lovett. Could I see this? Part of this application was for a 2-foot setback as opposed to a 50-foot setback. Will this sign be totally on the Enton Road property, or will it be overhanging the federal highway portion of the,
Totally located on Benson Road property.
and with the 15 degrees angled, it seems to me that the southbound traffic will not, even though it's going to be blank, they won't be able to see it at all? Because that's a fairly substantial angle, modification.
They will see the structure. There is no sign face for the southbound traffic.
It'll be painted, what color will it be painted? Just-
Generally neutral, tone of black.
Okay. And will this sign be lit 24 hours a day?
I believe there's testimony on that.
Yes, yes, the answer is yes. We had testified that it's 24 hours.
I have no more questions.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? I hear none and see none. Another witness?
Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. Raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony you're about to give before the board is true, so help you God?
I do.
And for the record, what testimony will you be
You
providing?
will be giving additional planning testimony.
And
We'll need to
can-
qualify.
Can you state and spell your name?
Kevin O'Brien, O'Brien,
And you're a
licensed professional planner, certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners.
And all your licenses are in full force and effect?
They are.
And you've been qualified either before this board or other boards in the state of New
I have
Jersey?
appeared before this board in the past, and about 20 other boards here in Morris County, about 250 other boards in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. You're sworn and qualified.
Thank you, Counselor.
Now, Mr. O'Brien, just to remind yourself and the board, Mr. McDonough has already testified extensively regarding the variance conditions that we were asking for, but we have modified the sign now by reducing the size of the sign and reducing the height of the sign, and I believe Mr. McDonough incorporated the fact that we eliminated the one face of the sign. So in your opinion, does Mr. McDonough's testimony still apply, number one, that the variance can be granted and without detriment to the master plan and zoning ordinances?
Yes, I do.
And number two, does this constitute diminished impact regarding the sign itself?
This is definitely diminished. It's gone from 75 feet to 60 feet in height. You've seen from the simulation that the bottom of the sign basically is right at the tree line. It could not go any lower without being lost in the tree line. So this is as low as it can possibly go. So this is definitely a benefit.
And certainly the applicant has taken into account the comments by members of the public and their concerns and tried to, and the members of the board, of course, by changing this application.
Yes, they have, and in fact, by removing one of the signs on the north side, that's an economic impact, of course, to the applicant, but in the interest of keeping that area blank and not having any impact whatsoever upon the neighbors of the township, that will remain blank, and it has been angled, as you have just heard, so that that sign will not be visible.
And the angling of that for 15 feet to make it more visible to the roadway, less visible to the residents, that direction, there's still no residents impacted by that, correct?
That is correct.
Angle?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any questions by the board? Anybody over here on the left? Nobody?
No.
On the right, Mr. Chadwick, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? I hear none, see none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our direct testimony.
You want to wait some after we hear if there's any?
If I may, yes, thank you.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to open it up to members of the public. If any member of the public who wishes to speak in opposition to this application, please come forward.
Ma'am, can you raise your right hand? You swear or affirm testimony you're about to give before the board is true to help you God?
I do.
And for the record, can you state and spell your name?
Deborah Lovett, D-E-B-R-A, Lovett, L-O-V-E-T-T.
Thank you, ma'am, you're sworn. And you can have a seat if you're more comfortable.
I appreciate the changes that were made. I think the sign as it exists, as it is proposed today, is much better than the original proposal. I speak in opposition to it on 2 points, though. This is a very, very congested part of the highway system. From 3:30 in the afternoon on, it is nearly bumper-to-bumper traffic every day, and I think it's going to be distracting. We already have a sign northbound from the state that talks about traffic conditions. And at least you're looking straight at the sign, so your tendency for the hand to follow the eye is minimized by having the sign there. I appreciate the lower sign, but I think people will be curious and they'll be looking, and I think it will run the risk of more people heading toward the left and possibly creating more accidents. That being said, the other part of it that bothers me is in 1965, when the Federal Highway Beautification Act was originally passed, we were trying to eliminate and regulate signage like this on federal highways to keep America beautiful. This regulation was also known as the Lady Bird Johnson Act. And this is, I remember the highways and the way they used to look before, when we had nothing but one billboard after the other after the other. Thanks to Lady Bird, we eliminated most of them, and our scenic routes look more scenic now by allowing in our township a video billboard like this. We will be setting a precedent, and it will alter that rural character of the road going through our town. I give credit to Pacifica for minimizing the impact of it by reducing the sign considerably and lowering the height, especially the height part. But it is still going to be an intrusion on what looks green and scenic now, will now become more of an advertisement, as it is on Route 46 or on Route 22 or any of the other parts of the area where signage is permitted. I would encourage people to, the ability to control our environmental impact on a visual level is resting with you, the Board of Adjustment. I'd urge you to really consider keeping Parsippany a little more green, keeping that visual impact there so that we don't become like parts of the state that are already overdeveloped and over-signaged. Thank you.
Any questions by the board of this person? Mr. O'Neill, you have any questions, sir?
Oh, no.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to the application? In support of the application? I hear none and see none. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has tried through this application to accommodate the comments of the board and the public in the redesign of this application. We think it's a good redesign. As the board knows, these applications are usually concerned with safety. At our last hearing, we heard a lot of testimony about how this sign can be seen safely from the roadway and traffic and timed accordingly to do that. Regarding distraction and items like that, signage exists already. This is a known quantity in New Jersey, has been for many, many years. It hasn't really presented any problems, and the public is used to seeing this type of signage. However, this sign has been reduced down in height, it's still safe, and it's accommodating members of the public and only visible to people on the roadway and commercial properties here in town. So we don't think an analogy regarding this is the beginning of sign pollution is really accurate. This one was placed very specifically and angled very specifically with just that target audience in mind. And we hope that the board sees fit to grant these variances here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to go into conference.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Jaskowitz.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm just gonna start off, I just wanna mention one thing, because I'm probably the only one on the board that has been here as far back as this. There was a sign application, and it was not a lit sign application, it was just a static sign application to be located behind the Holiday Inn, which was not visible at all from any angle by any resident in Parsippany. And it was kind of set back from the Holiday Inn. You couldn't see it from 46. And the reason for the variance had to do with the convergence of the highways at that point, 280, 80, and it didn't meet some criteria. Do you remember the specifics?
It wasn't the principal building, that's what was the
It
problem.
wasn't principal. Okay. All right, anyway, we turned them down. I voted in favor, we turned them down. They went to court. And they won. So.
They never built it.
Never built it. They never built it, but they did win. They did win.
Based on
Case law.
Case law. So.
I've participated with municipalities drawing regulations for billboards and representing various billboard companies for 20 years. And the case law on these billboards is unique to that use. And it gets into that constitutional argument, which is way over my pay scale in terms of freedom of speech. And that's, the last one that went up was the digital aspect, because it's a relatively new technology, and it isn't, but in terms of case law it was. And the Supreme Court found that, you can't discriminate against digital. In fact, it's a better medium, because what you have to do is put 450 watt halogens shining off the face of those static billboards, and they ricochet, where the digital has a different measured lumens, not measured, it's totally different
the fact that it
technology.
adjusts.
Yeah. So it comes down to, if you think there is some serious safety issue involved with this, if it's encroaching on some kind of historical issues, those kinds of things, then you shouldn't vote for it. I didn't hear anything about that.
What about the Highway Beautification Act in interstate highways?
Doesn't apply.
Why?
I really don't know why it doesn't. There was a rule, she wanted everybody to be 500 feet from the highway, I think it was. 660, was it? And it only applied to certain highways. Did not apply to the interstates.
If I just say, read this tonight, it was.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, we cannot have a conversation, I apologize, but we cannot have a conversation at this point. The board is in conference.
Yeah, the question of whether it applies, DOT has jurisdiction on their rights of way and along their rights of way, and they've issued a permit. So it complies with whatever regulations are there.
So
But safety wasn't one of them, but safety wasn't a component of that.
No, safety is embodied within their regulations, meaning they will not allow, the digital ones have to be 3,000 feet apart, the statics have to be 1,000 feet apart. None of them can be within the ramp movements at the end. So this thing had to be cited to meet those standards. The ramp movements are what they were concerned about.
Right, but in this section of the highway, there's a lot going on, right? There's the shifting travel pattern, and I'm just, this is where I understand DOT gave the permit, but, I mean, does that mean we really have to roll over and play dead? We've got a lot going on. We've got the shifting traffic pattern coming off of Route 10, from the 5 lanes to the 3 lanes to the back to 4 lanes. And then this is just leading up to the convergence of the 287 decision-making. And then, it doesn't affect southbound side because that's going to be blackened, but, we have a number of accidents in this area, in this highway area. And then when you add the interchangeable ads, that, again, we talk about the cone of vision, the 40% cone of vision. I don't know, if you're driving and then you're seeing invariable signs or, the changing ads, I would just think that in a hotbed where you're making a lot of decisions in less than a 3-mile stretch, that this is somewhat of a distraction. To me, this has less to do with free speech and more about the location. And I could appreciate all the concessions that the applicant has made, but I'm still not convinced that the negative impact is totally eliminated in regards to the neighborhoods.
But isn't the DOT giving their approval, telling us that if we don't have another reason to vote it down, that we kind of have to approve it?
John just said if it's safety, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. Safety. It's all about safety in this stretch of the highway. There's a lot going on between Route 10 and then the 287-80 mixing bowl. Although not as complicated as the likes of Wayne, but it sees its shares of accidents. And then, like the southbound side, that Jersey wall, it's almost like you're in a trench. It's a higher than usual Jersey wall. But again, that's the southbound traffic. The applicant has addressed the fact that he's going to blacken that area. That static sign's going away. I still think it's a safety problem, and personally, I think it's an eyesore in this particular location. The other 2 locations that I mentioned, interchange, mile marker 55, and then I believe it's mile marker 10. Those are straight shoot highways. Drivers are not having to worry about merging with 78 or taking the 206 down to the Hillsborough area. These signs are away from those major ramps.
Mr. Kaplan?
I was just gonna say, on the permit, it says that it's issued in accordance with the regulations of the roadside sign control and outdoor advertising. Is anybody familiar with those regulations? I mean, do those regulations include safety issues?
Yes. They basically, they deal with pornography, they deal with all kinds of different things.
Well, that's content.
The change of the sign, the power of the sign, all of those different things. And, it's, the industry wants these signs to blend with their environment. They do not want to be the bad guys. As soon as you put a sign on the top of a pole, everybody calls it an ugly stick. That's what it's been characterized for years, and they do not want that image. Simple as that.
One of the arguments of the applicant for us granting this application is that there's going to be public service announcements on there, or if there's missing children, that kind of thing can be put up there. Can we indicate a certain percentage that they may be required to do that? So it's serving the public good for...
I've seen applicants agree to that. It's really, the applicant has to sit down with the administration and work out a process. There's always slow times on these things. Are they 100% all the slots rented? Who knows? But they can always find some space.
Yeah, I think we need to take into consideration in that regard is that the NJDOT has what's known as VMS signs, variable message signs, that do just that, that advertise the silver alerts, that advertise the missing, the amber alerts. It's already in place on these major highways. We already have that in
I
place.
thought Bernie was talking about Boy Scout dinners or Girl Scout dinners.
Well, whatever, yeah,
Those
because
kind
I
of
think it was
things.
mentioned, he was talking about local,
Right.
Emergency.
local thing.
Right.
local-
Yeah, I know Dot's got into the, the Amber Alerts and what have you. Whether this would help on it, certainly would. More the better, I think.
Is there a percentage of time your client would agree to?
We had originally indicated we would work with the administration regarding that type of thing, but I don't know if we can, without working with the administration to see what's on their minds, and for community groups, it'd be very difficult to.
Will you have an idea, maybe a range for the board?
You know, I mean, that in itself is an issue. So what kind of advertisement is gonna go up there beyond Amber Alert? And, I mean, are we gonna do PAL trunk or treat on Halloween? Well, let's think about this, okay? We have that on 287. Who knows what you're drawing to that trunk or treat? I don't know. Is it me or, okay.
That might be free speech.
Well, no, fine,
Well, it could
but
be-
as a parent, I won't be at that trunk or treat if I'm inviting all of 287 to that trunk or treat.
It could be within the, purview of what the town is requesting as opposed to.
I'm just,
reminded
you
by my
know,
client who
with all
was-
due respect, I think the benefit's not going to be as
And no
great
one
for
really
the
talked
township.
about the trunk or treat. They talked about silver alert. They talked about more safe, I thought I heard more safety issues.
Which is already handled by VMS signs.
Although
Well,
you
in the
probably
case
can never
of
get enough of that.
emergency,
Can we
testified.
go in order and hear from the rest of the board at this point?
Sure.
Mr. Jaskowitz, you want to continue?
I think I'm leaning towards approving this. I think that they did everything they could to answer the opposition and to the people that it was affecting. I'm going to entrust that the DOT would not allow signs in areas where they thought it was a safety issue. So I'm having faith in them, and for that reason, I will be voting for it.
Mr. Prasad?
I'm not prepared, but can I still make a comment? I'm not prepared for.
Oh, you can't vote on this, right?
But can I still comment on it?
Can he still participate?
Yeah, you can give
You're in
his opinion.
you're in conference, so he's not gonna vote, so I would say no.
Yeah. Mr.
Yeah, applicant has made a significant improvements from the previous testimony. They did their best to go through the safety levels and the neighborhood, reducing the height and all, and also it is partly beneficial to the town where the amber alerts or some missing things happen, that I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Berkowitz, you have anything else?
Quite frankly, I'm on the fence. But I'm leaning, towards, going with the state, because they gave them the permit. And if there was a safety issue, I guess I have to be hopeful that they would have done something different. So I would say at this point in time would be a yes.
Ms. Schneider?
Yeah, I'm gonna be voting no for this reason cited. With all due respect to the state, I think there's a lot going on this stretch of the highway. There is a better location for this particular sign on 287. This is not it. And then again, I would caution in regards to, with all due respect to the applicant, I know he's going in with good faith, but I don't think the benefits I don't think the benefits are worth it for this town at this particular location. And a lot of the benefits can be handled by variable message signs that are already in place. I'll be voting no.
Mr. Kaplan?
Sure, I do want to begin by recognizing and thanking the applicant for the accommodations that were made. I understand that, When those things happen, they don't tend to make the profit that they had sought to make, and the good faith to work with the community is greatly appreciated. I too was underwhelmed by the positive criteria for this. I am concerned about the confluence of the highways there and the sudden slowdown that is often happening. So what I worry about is watching the signs and waiting to see what's next as the sign turns over, which I have found myself doing as a driver at times, particularly at the one at 55. But this is a much more heavily traveled area. The congestion is great. Rush hour starts at 3 o'clock for some reason here. I've never been able to figure out why. And the potential for distractibility is a great negative criteria for me. I am a little, and I know we have to be careful about precedent, I am a little concerned about if we approve this sign, what's the next applicant gonna, are we gonna turn this into sign after sign after sign? And I know each case is unique on its own merits, but if free speech is so heavily weighted here, I am concerned that everybody's gonna claim free speech. And if I'm wrong and a court or a judge proves me wrong, then the judge proves me wrong, but I wanna at least know that I was able to vote no because I did not feel comfortable with the sign here.
One, two, three, four, five, six. We need both alternates. Casey, can you vote on this, or did you?
Yes, I did.
Listen to
I listened to
tape?
the
Okay,
CD
thank you.
and I read about it. So, when I came here, before that, I was thinking, the height is, it's too high, the size, square footage is too high, so I didn't like the variances they were seeking. But after listening in the beginning this meeting, I see that it is the height, it is the square footage from, the size is smaller, it's also in one-sided only. And I'm not on a fence anymore. I'm in favor of this application, but I have still a couple of things. I have a question and a comment. My question is the tree. I don't know whether the tree, trees are almost touching the bottom of the sign. That's what the expert said. I was just wondering what will happen in 5 years. They'll go up and cut the trees or about top of the tree or something, because it's very close to the sign.
Do you want to tell us something, Mr. O'Neill?
Yes, I'm being advised that they do trim the tree back slightly to provide for the visibility, but would not be anything serious. They would maintain the tree at its current height in order to hide the base.
Okay. And the last thing I will say, as far as driver safety, drivers looking at this and maybe may get distracted. I personally don't see it any different than people texting and driving. What's the difference? There are more people doing, texting and emailing and other things. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of drivers, they are used to it. Before not, but
The difference
I've
is
seen
we're
it.
not approving people's cell phones in their cars, we're having to approve a sign.
Yeah. But people are used to it, getting used to that kind of distraction. That's what I'm saying. But I'm okay with this, and I'm in favor of the application.
I'm in favor of the application with some reservations in general, but nothing that would prevent me from voting in favor. I'm not enamored with these types of signs because I feel sometimes I'm driving down the road and I see something and I want to read it, and 3 seconds later it's gone. And but I guess that is the technology that we're going to be living with going forward. I think there's enough approval of the DOT and all. I think that has to carry some significant weight because obviously the DOT is much more attuned to the driving public than this group is, because there's nobody up here as far as I can tell, with any experience in that area. Mr. Berkowitz, are you still leaning in favor?
Oh, yeah, I would say at this point I'm reluctant, yes.
Okay. Have a motion to come out of conference?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Jaskowitz.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I count 5 affirmative votes, so is there someone that will craft a resolution? Or do we want to do a resolution to have the attorney draw up a, would that make more sense, Mr. O'Neill?
That would be fine, yes, Mr. Chair.
Is that good?
Yes.
Mr. Berkowitz, you want to make that motion?
No,
Okay,
I'd rather not.
all right. Mr. Reddy, will you make that motion?
Yeah, let's, attorney will make a formal adjustments on this and it will be reviewed.
Mr. Jaskowitz, second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Nora, call the roll.
Mr. Berkowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Jaskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan.
No.
Mr. Parikh.
Yes.
Mr. Reddy.
Yes.
Ms. Snyder.
No.
Chairman Irakane.
Yes. Result is the variance is granted. We will well, you two will work on you'll give him.
Yes.
And then as soon as the resolution is drafted, we will memorialize it.
Do we get the full
Thank you.
resolution to this one?
Yes.
We can read it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Okay, let's call case 1943. Anybody need a break? Anybody need a potty break? Everybody's good? I'm the only one up here drinking water. Application 1943, 181 Kingston Realty LLC. D variance for an adult daycare center.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Stephen Tombalakian, Wiener Law Group, on behalf of the applicant. Save the best application for last, I appreciate that.
Of course.
Chairman, to my right is Jagat Mehta, who's one of the principal owners of the applicant, SI 181 Realty, and I'd like to have him sworn because he's going to be providing like the explanatory factual testimony concerning the use and the operations. And then after Mr. Mehta, I have Adnan Khan, our site engineer, who the board is familiar with because he was before this board several years ago getting an approval for a townhouse repurposing. This applicant doesn't want to, is contracted by the property to repurpose the building as an adult daycare use. Which would mean that if this application is successful and we close title on the purchase, then the board's earlier approval for the residential use would be, what's the legal term? Abandoned. So, this is to repurpose the building at 181 Kensington.
And that's the old, it was an old ShopRite or an old grocery store.
Something, but now it's going to be, yeah.
They're not going to build those townhouses?
No.
This man does not want to build a townhouse. This man wants to relocate his adult daycare facility from Whippany
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
Parsippany,
Mhm.
where most of his clients reside.
OMG.
Sir, you raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board is true so help you God. And for the record, can you spell your name?
J-A-G-A-T, God, last name M-E-H-T-A. Nothing.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Now, some good news to report. We filed this application, I guess, this past summer, patiently waiting for a hearing, and in that meantime, in that intervening time, the state of New Jersey has issued the license, and which I'd like to have marked as Exhibit A1, and I'll put today's date, 12/4/19. And I'll pass this up. It's not stapled. I'll pass it up to Mr. Chadwick because one of his review reports, Neil asked about the status of the state license, and that's a requirement to operate an adult daycare center in New Jersey. Now, as I noted, the second inning, which is the applicant, currently operates and has operated for some period of time an adult daycare facility at 155 Algonquin in Whippany. That facility is in rented space. The space is shared with other tenants and other uses, and the applicant has found the ideal property to purchase so they could be the master of their own property, not be subject to leases and sharing. He wants he's to be free to operate on his own property. And again, this property, when he found it, he did his best to get it under contract, get this application in, and hopefully this board will see fit to permit the use variance, because adult daycare centers are not permitted in this zone. So we're asking for use variance approval as well as minor site plan, just to allow pretty much the reconfiguration of the parking lot and the curbs and landscaping and whatnot, to improve it over what's there now, make it safer. And the original version of the site plan that was submitted with the application in August has been radically changed to address the engineering and planning comments and input, to remove the parking spaces from within the right-of-way. Those have all been removed. It's been an improved plan working with the board professionals. So without further ado, Mr. Mena, you've heard my introductory comments. Can you briefly explain what it is an adult daycare center is, how you operate, what it is that you're going to be asking to do at 181 Kingston?
181 Kingston, basically we operate right now in Whippany. And let me tell you, second inning was the only daycare center in whole Morris County 10 years ago. We were the first guys. Now there are a few, but our majority of the clients live within 1 or 2 miles of 181 Kingston Road. And also the elderly building over here on 111 Parsippany Road. We wanted to expand. We cannot expand in Whippany, the space restrictions over there. Then we found this. And this will help us expand because we already have more registered clients than we are licensed for. So this will help us. If we move here, we can serve these clients a lot better. And they all live in Parsippany. Adult daycare, we run 2 shifts. The first shift starts at 9 o'clock, 9 to 2. The second shift will be from 2:30 to 7:30.
Now, Mr. Mena, the way it works in Whippany, would the operations in Whippany be identical to what you'd be operating in Parsippany?
Yes, it will be definitely identical.
Okay.
Same operation.
Okay. Now, in Whippany today, do any of your clientele, senior citizens, do any of them drive themselves to the facility?
No, nobody drives. We pick them up and we drop them off.
Okay, explain how that works.
In the morning, our drivers come in, they drop their cars, pick up the vans, they pick them up, they bring them in, and then they constantly do doctor's appointments. So after lunch, they're supposed to be in the facility for 5 hours, the clients. So after lunch, they will drop them off. And then before they drop them off, they will pick up the second shift. And the same guys will drop the first shift off.
So tell me about, your company owns and operates a fleet of passenger vans?
Yes, we do have 12 passenger vans, which are 4 transits.
And about what's the seating capacity of the
14 passengers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many?
14.
The vans will hold 40 people?
14.
14. And how many do you have? 12?
12.
Okay.
And how many people do you normally have under control, your control? How many clients do you have? You know?
Right now in Whippany, we have 100 clients for the first shift, and second shift we have approximately 25. Registered clients are more, but we cannot bring them.
So you're space limited at Whippany?
Space limited, license limited because of the space.
Okay. And this space, the Parsippany space, is demonstrably larger than Whippany?
It's 3,500 square feet bigger than Whippany.
But you're going to be operating the same fleet of 12 vans at this
Same
facility?
fleet of 12 vans, yeah.
Okay. Now, the idea is, if this facility is approved by this board and the contract closes and you purchase the property and successfully, what would you do with your leased Whippany space?
Leased Whippany will be also a satellite because the way we run it, a lot of people in the area doesn't want to go to another daycare because we've been here for 10 years. We haven't lost a client. As you guys probably know, few other opened up here, but we are still here full over capacity. So there is a lot of demand for our center right now.
If there's a demand and you can satisfy the need, you would operate the Whippany as a satellite
facility.
Okay. But Parsippany
So
would be
both will be operated under the same license. That's what we are talking to state right now.
Is there any medical care being given at the facility?
Not medical care. We do have nurses, so they do take their vitals when the clients come in the morning. If they need to do the They will administer medicine, they will take all the vitals, they will check the blood pressure and everything. But all 5 hours, the registered nurses are there.
Do they have to pass any kind of competency test, or do you have patients with dementia and Alzheimer's?
No, we don't have any
Nothing like
dementia.
that, so
Alzheimer's,
nobody
no.
could be walking out on their own?
No.
Okay. We're
Just,
not-
with regard to your license, it says relocation and expansion to Parsippany.
Yeah, because we're gonna move a lot of clients from there to here, who are living close to the facility.
And it's a much larger space.
And it's
than-
much a larger space.
So you're gonna be using the existing buildings and everything that's there?
Yeah, existing, we're gonna renovate from inside.
You're just gonna renovate what's there?
Inside, yes, inside, we fit it out for the daycare.
And we fortuitously retained the same engineer that designed the townhouse project for the prior or the current owner, who's sitting in the back. So he's very familiar with the site. The board is familiar with his work. Adnan Khan, he'll be testifying next.
With regard to the number of clients in Parsippany, it seems in this letter, it says 190 slots.
190 slots,
So that would be 190 people at one time?
yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
100, so you would have 190 in the morning
190,
shift?
yeah, on the morning.
So the morning shift would be 190?
Second
And then you
shift is, we have the license, but usually a lot of people don't want to come on the
Well,
second shift.
what could be the capacity? in
For the
afternoon?
first and the second, 190.
So you could do
per shift.
190 and then 190?
190 and
Is there gonna be a kitchen facility?
Serving kitchen, we do own our own restaurant, so no headaches of cooking over there.
So the kitchen will be used as just a heating
Serving, yeah,
facility?
heating, hissing.
And all the
serving.
food that you serve now to your
That's
clients
it.
is prepared by your private restaurant
Yes,
located
that is
off-site?
exactly what we do at the Whitney.
So no fire suppression and no,
Right now, the store, the place do have, in our Whitney, we do have the stove, because to make warm milk in the morning and tea, so we do have a stove.
what
and a
about
small
Green
hood.
Movement?
Huh?
You said in Whippany.
In a Whitney.
What about here?
Here, we will have that stove, one stove.
He's asking about fire suppression and if you had a commercial kitchen. there's
Now, I don't
requirements.
know when we go to the permit, what they're gonna ask for.
You're gonna have to have this whole building.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're gonna ask for,
190.
but in Whitney, we don't have it.
Mr. Chadwick just mentioned that given your use and the fragility of your clients, the likelihood that the building will need to be sprinkled.
Yeah, it's gonna be all sprinkler. The state requires that.
Are you still only using the stove for warming up milk and tea, or are you going to cook?
No, warming up milk and.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what we do in Whitney. We have the stove, obviously it's a little bigger because we have to make tea or coffee for so many people. But we do cater from outside because it's a headache to cater over there.
So you don't warm up food? I mean, you
No,
don't-
food comes warm.
Okay, so.
It comes in a warm container.
So how many food runs is coming into this location?
Just one per shift.
But you have two shifts, the 190 and the 190?
Yeah.
One per shift,
One per
okay.
shift, yes. And that would be lunch and dinner?
Lunch and
for the
dinner.
first
Okay.
shift and dinner for the second shift?
Second shift.
So the purpose of your business is to get seniors out of the home, to get them mentally stimulated, physically stimulated? What is the purpose of the business?
Okay, adult daycare started, I believe, in 1970. The main purpose was before you go to nursing home, you don't sit in front of the TV at home
Uh-huh.
and eat junk food and watch TV all day. So this way, there is somebody who's going to monitor your vitals, administer your medicine. Again, we take them to doctor's appointments. So public transportation, what government provides right now, it's a week wait if you want to go to a doctor's appointment for Medicaid patients. So this, once they come here, all their needs are done. Plus, this is for Medicaid people, and they don't have that much money, so breakfast and lunch is very important to them too.
So what do you mean all their needs are met? They get picked up by a vehicle, they get brought to the facility, then they have a doctor's appointment, so they will take your vehicle to the doctor's
My
appointment?
drivers will take them, yes.
You'll bring them back to your facility, and when their session is done,
Yes.
they get brought home?
Yes.
So there's gonna be a lot of in and out activity among all
Doctor's
these
appointment
12
usually-
vehicles.
I'm sorry, doctor's appointment, usually right now, we run about 10 to 15
Right, but that's on top of you transporting, right, 190 people in.
Transporting is one time. Everybody comes at one time. So one after another.
That's
So,
what I'm saying.
yeah, within a
Right.
15-minute period. yeah.
Right, so between the hours of like 6 and 9, you're gonna have these 12 vehicles dropping off all your clients, correct?
Not 6
picking-
and 9. Let's say we start our first shift at 9.
Right.
Everybody will be there between 15 minutes period, because drivers leave, they have to be there before 9.
So that means your drivers start
Quarter
going around
to
picking up at
9
8
to
o'clock?
9, everybody's in.
Right.
And again, I'm sorry, how many vehicles are coming in during that first shift?
First shift, it depends on the route. Now over here might be less routes because everything is closer by, so we might be able to use lesser vans.
Are you changing are you adding, or are you carrying your clients over from?
From home to here? But see, right
No,
now,
from your other business in Whippany.
most
Or
of my
this is-
clients are coming here, so because they are Parsippany clients.
Got it, okay. So roughly how many vehicles?
We have 12 right now. We won't
12.
need more, yeah.
So in the morning, so let's say this morning, did you have 12 vans with 12 drivers go out on their routes to
Yes.
pick up the clients?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know how many back and forths do they have to do to satisfy? Let's talk about Whippany. How many back and forths does one van do each morning to bring in all his assigned clients?
Right now, what we do is everybody goes out, they bring the clients in, and then they will see, let's say, 2 doctors in Parsippany. We do take the appointment, so they don't take it. So we coordinate. So there are 4 people in appointments. One van will go, drop everybody off, and pick everybody up from different appointments. That's how we work. And
In addition to doctor's appointments, do you have organized activities for your clients?
they play bingo. We take them once a week. We take them on trips, like shopping trips.
So what I'm trying to visualize, this is in a neighborhood. Is this gonna be like a school drop-off in terms of traffic? You know, you drive by a school at 7:30 in the morning and you're waiting in line to let all the parents drop off.
That's a good question. If I have an elderly parent, do I drive my elderly parent to your facility, or do you pick them up?
We pick them up.
I understand, but how 12 vans all arriving at the same time, waiting to get, I'm trying to visualize this, so I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong. Trying to get into the parking lot, turn around, unload, I imagine that takes some time in the parking lot. I don't know how big these vans are, 190
They're
divided by, you
Yeah,
did the math.
Yeah, 190 divided by your
16
12
people
vans
per
is
van.
16 people per van, and you were
Right
testified
now, we don't
earlier
have
that
190, that's why I have 12. Maybe I need to buy one more, that's it. But the way
So we're at
the
13
number
vans.
looks very big, 12, but if you look at it, it's not that much. It's done in like 15-minute span.
Yeah,
Because
elderly
everybody-
people move slower, though, don't they?
I know, but they're dropped right off.
Well, they're dropped, you're making it seem like you're delivering newspapers.
That's not right.
Is that expert testimony?
No, I mean, I don't know,
See, right
with
now
all
in
due
Whippany-
respect,
Yeah.
elderly people don't move
In
that
Whippany,
fast.
right now, if you could imagine this, you have an adult daycare center occupying about 40% of the building, a child daycare center operated right next, a nursery, child care operated right next door, with parents of 60 kids. How many kids? More than 60 kids. So they're arriving at the same time in a smaller facility with shared tenants and leaseholds. It's a disaster.
And individual
It's a
drop-offs.
disaster.
Those
And
kids-
individual drop-offs.
those kids are not
Yeah,
getting a bus.
so now
What street
they
is
have the
that
freedom of having the whole property just for their own use. If they could make it work in Whippany in that disastrous scenario,
What street?
Parsippany's gonna be a cakewalk. Gonna be a cakewalk.
What street in Whippany is that on?
Algonquin. That
Yeah, so
industrial park.
that's a like almost a 4-lane road,
Oh, yeah.
not through a residential
commercial
neighborhood.
area.
Right. But
Right.
if you drive by 155, you'll see one little tiny sign. It'll say second inning. Tiny. And that's one of the issues here is that we're not even asking for signage. If we're going to put up a sign, it'll be completely conforming because they don't need a big sign.
We're still on
Yeah,
logistics.
do you have a traffic expert on this? I'm just curious.
Mr. Khan?
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Mike,
We'll say.
is he's gonna testify about operations, hours, number of employees,
Yes.
parking,
Well,
so
parking, Mr. Khan is more of the expert on parking.
Well,
but
he may be the expert, but does he know, I don't think he can testify as to the operation, so.
Mr. Maida,
Well,
any
so-
operations
So
questions?
where the vans are gonna be, are the vans gonna be parked on site, or are they parked off site?
Parked on site.
So
And
they're
Mr. Khan will
parked-
identify where they're going to be parked on the site plan.
Okay, so let's go back to operations. Your first shift starts at 9, correct? And then it ends at what time?
2:30.
And what time does your second shift start?
Actually, 2 o'clock. Second shift starts at 2:30.
2 o'clock. Okay, so your second shift starts at
2:30.
2:30. And what time does it end?
7:30.
You're gonna have your employees come to work at what time? So what time does your business
The
open?
drivers come little early because they have to be back by 9. So now it all depends on their route.
Okay, so I guess you have people who are gonna administer medicines,
Yes, they all come quarter to 9.
all those people, how many of those people are there?
10,
10. How many drivers are there?
12.
12. And they all have cars?
Yes.
Okay. And what time do your 22 employees come?
Drivers come little early, like I said.
Okay, what is little early?
Okay, it all depends on their route. If their route takes 30 minutes, they come 30 minutes, 1 hour early.
So
they
your
go
business,
and bring them.
8 o'clock, you'll
Yes,
open up
8
8 o'clock? And at night, you're gonna be shutting down, 7:30, your people leave,
Yeah.
but I would think that you have cleanup.
Cleanup is done constantly. We have a cleaner inside.
And what time do you think those people will be done, that operation will be done?
7:30, I believe everything will be shut down once the drivers leave. Then they will drop their keys in a box.
What time is that? What time does the last driver drop the last key in the box at night?
Usually after an hour.
I'm sorry?
Usually after 1 hour.
So 8:30?
By 8:30.
They brought the vans back by 8:30?
Yes.
There's 41 spaces.
And are you, other than your 10 people who are gonna give healthcare related services here, and your 12 drivers, are you gonna have a receptionist, are you gonna have an office manager, are you gonna have supervisors?
They're all included, administrator,
Okay,
receptionist,
that's
inside
included
help,
in your 10.
Nurse, yeah.
So at any one time, you're gonna have 10 employees on site?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 12 drivers,
12.
do they,
Let me-
after they, what do the
let me
drivers
interrupt
do
you.
after, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Because you're talking about your 100 client base now, right? You're answering the questions based on 100 people.
Yes.
So if you can get up to
190.
190, not
No, no,
100.
No,
Right now I have
he's
100.
responding.
Well,
To-
I understand what you're saying. Currently, you have 100 people at one time.
Yes.
How many people do you have working there to help these 100 people?
Right now I have 10 people, but that's more than enough for even 190.
So you
according to the
so you
state.
expect 10 to be enough for 190?
It would be 190, nine people. So
Your license requires a ratio, correct?
yeah, it will be all
Do you know what that ratio is?
9 to 1, but it includes the drivers.
Say that again?
9 to 1.
So you need
So
9, for every
you
9
need one
clients, you need one.
healthcare provider to 9
Nine
patients.
clients. 9 clients.
And the drivers count towards that?
Drivers count towards that. Only drivers who goes on appointment don't count. So, but usually not all the drivers go on appointment. Because like I said, if there's 10.
Well, I gotta get back to that's back to the question I was trying to ask was, after the drivers pick up everybody in the morning and drop them off, what do they do?
Some drivers will go for appointments, the other help inside. In
All right. So
ADLs and all that, helping them.
do the nurses drive?
No, nurses don't.
No, the nurses drive themselves to the facility
Oh,
and
yes,
park
yeah,
their
they
cars.
do, yes.
But the
And
nurses
how many-
don't drive the vans.
No, they don't
And
drive.
for 190 people, how many nurses are you gonna have?
We're gonna have 3 nurses.
3, okay.
But aren't you required to have certain certifications for these people to watch your clients? You just can't have a driver.
No, not for the regular ADLs and all that. It could be anybody. The nursing is a requirement that we have to have.
So the people that you hire to work in your facility will act both as caregivers during the day and drivers at the beginning and end of the day.
Yes.
Is that
Like,
correct?
like, what are some things the drivers do when they're
Drivers
inside?
will serve the food because they don't get their food from the kitchen. They will serve the food. They will help them go to the bathroom and this and.
So when the drivers come back from dropping off everybody, their car that they drove to work is gonna be there plus the van. There's gonna be enough parking spaces?
Usually right now what they do, we have about, currently we have less than 36 parking in Whitney.
Yeah.
And it works fine. Because when they come in, initially when drivers come in the morning, they park their cars and the vans are gone, then the rest of the staff come. Not all the vans are, some vans are on the road.
So you will not need any street parking?
I don't think so, no.
So, I have a few questions. Do these people all live in the private homes? Do they live in a facility for senior citizens where you go and pick up 10 people? Or are you taking grandma from someone's home, getting them out of the house and caring for them? First question.
They're both.
Yeah, both. So they get to your facility. Who's in charge of the ratios of how many people, and who, is it the health department? Is it in the medical, that, who is watching over the care that who's responsible for watching over the care that these people are getting? So that there aren't 3 caregivers. You said there's 3 nurses for 190 people? That doesn't sound like the greatest ratio.
I would say 3 among part-time, 60 people, 1 nurse.
So the ratio is 60 people?
60 people, 1 nurse.
And that's
So-
decided by the state or county or
Right.
somebody?
And when you have a license for 190, it's hardly 190 are there at the same time. Even though if I have registered 135, not all 100 is going to be there. Because if you, let's say 190 say yes, that will come tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, at least 5 or 10 is going to say, I'm not feeling good, I'm not coming.
So who is the licensure from? So
Department of Health.
Health.
Yes. So Department of Health monitors us once a year, and all the insurance companies, Horizon, Amerigroup, Wellcare, United Health.
Medicaid?
Medicaid. They
Medicare?
all- No Medicare.
Just Medicaid.
Medicaid. So we are monitored by, very closely monitored by everybody. Even food is monitored by Federal Food Program. So they also come and inspect our facility.
Mr. Maida is going to be sticking around while Mr. Khan testifies, so he's available to answer any questions.
Any other questions?
Not right now.
Couple.
Go ahead.
The client, as part of the agreement, they are not permitted to drive to the facility themselves
Yes, they are
or
not.
be transported. They have to be picked up in the bus, correct? Okay. And the, yeah, I'll think of it.
How would you enforce that? If a caretaker or a family member wants to not opt for the van and wants to drive their family member to the facility, what are you gonna do, refuse them as a client?
Actually, what the state is, right now in my 10 years of history, nobody's dropping the parents off or anybody like that. Once in a while, if they are somewhere or they took them, then they will drop them off. But usually, everybody comes by the bus because they have to come at a certain time. We say no.
Okay,
And if they are coming at a certain time, only then we accept them.
understood.
Nancy, I can't say for certain, but I looked that question up a couple months ago, and I'm pretty sure that it's required now.
Okay.
Van transportation is required.
No, required, and basically, you can't go to that facility unless you're in the van, transported by the van to and from. The exception, of course, somebody's sick, somebody has to go to a certain doctor's appointments beyond their region, they can get picked up and taken by, either by private transportation or a family member, one or the other. That's gonna happen.
Okay. Well, right, that's gonna happen, right.
Isn't there off East Halsey, isn't there an adult daycare center there now?
Yeah, there's a couple of them in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one across from the hot dog guy?
There's one next to Home Depot.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You get 2 of them down there, you get the one that's.
Oh, right, Home Depot and the East
The
Halsey.
other one never went in, did it?
And there are a couple of them.
Right, the one never went in.
One on
The
Parsippany Road never went in.
No, the one on 46 never went in.
Yeah, one on
remember?
46 too, yeah.
When Gordon Meth was still here, remember? Right, Bob?
Yeah,
That one never
you're
went
right.
in.
Right.
The one almost opposite, Partroy Funeral Home never went in, did it?
Correct.
Right. That was that woman who.
Yeah, she lied.
Yeah, that was.
She lied about everything or something?
That's the old house. It used to be
Yeah.
I think it used to be a lawyer's office.
This would be a lawyer's office, right?
I know the other question. Renovations to this building. Obviously, the interior is gonna be modified to set up game areas, lounging areas, whatever they may be. How about the exterior of the building? What's happening there?
Actually, we're going make a nice stucco. That's all we are doing.
Do
Make
we
it
have a
beautiful.
picture of it?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a
Do we-
rendering or just the
No,
architectural plan?
We don't have a rendering yet.
Yeah.
Just the architecture plan, because whatever it is right now, we're gonna make it nice.
You're looking for site plan approval, right?
Correct.
So we need to have that.
Okay. We submitted architectural, but I
I
don't
thought
believe-
you did too, and I'm looking and
It's a big, thick
Yeah.
stack of architectural.
So how far did you get in the construction from the last application that was approved? I'm trying to figure this out. Huh? They didn't do anything, right?
That's the current owner. We're the contract purchaser. Oh, so we haven't touched the building because it doesn't
Okay.
belong to us yet.
Okay.
Any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? I heard none, seen none. You want to call your next witness?
Thank you very much. I'd like to call, yes, thank you, Ray. I'd like to call Adnan Khan, our professional engineer, who prepared the drawings.
You raise your hand, you swear firm testimony about to give before the board is true self you got?
I do.
For the record, can you state and spell your name?
Adnan Khan, Khan, AWZ Engineering, 150 River Road, Montville, New Jersey.
And all your licenses are in full force and effect?
They are.
You've been sworn before and qualified by this board and also other boards in the state of New Jersey?
I was, yeah.
Thank you, you're qualified.
Now, Mr. Khan, as I mentioned before, you were previously the engineer for the current owner when he came in before this board for use variance to do the residential repurposing of the property?
That's correct.
Okay, so you've been working on this site for a couple of years now?
Yeah, I'm very much familiar with this
Okay.
site.
And you were responsible for preparing the site plan that was presented before this board that we're here tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, either working at the board or here, show
go
the
to the
board the
board.
property, go over, what I'd like you to do is particularly emphasize the existing conditions, particularly how the right-of-way is used now, and what changes you've made during the iterations of the design for this project, explaining what changes you've made to kind of reduce reliance on that right-of-way.
As probably most of you are familiar with this site, currently there is a big convenience store located on the site. Portion of it is used as a warehousing, but mostly is the convenience store. What we are proposing is, and again, there is a building pretty much very close to the front lot line, approximately about 8 feet, the front yard setback. And then there is a portion of a property along with the lot line. There are approximately 22 parking spaces that the people, mostly the people in the neighborhood and the businesses in the neighborhood, they utilize in the front. So what we are proposing is, again, keeping the building as is, making the internal changes as approved by the state. We are making, they are adding few doors. One main door for pickup and for entry and exit close to the southern side of the building, and another door towards the north side of the building. They are adding some more doors towards the rear. I think that's for the building code requirements. What we are doing is we're eliminating the entire paved area in the front, which is partially on the right of way and partially on the property, and converting that into green space, green area. So in other words, the existing parking, which is, I won't say legal, it's not legal parking, but it's going to be taken out. The asphalt is going to be taken out. It's going to be landscaped with trees and topsoil and grass. So that's one major change that we're doing along the right of way. We are also I won't call it reconfiguring, but readjusting the parkings. Currently there are about 26 or 27 parking spaces, but they are all different sizes and widths and lengths. So what we are doing is we are making them standard size parking spaces, 9 by 18, with 2 marked handicap van accessible parking spaces close to the entrance area. So overall what we are proposing is about 41 parking spaces on the property, including 2 handicap accessible parking. Currently there are 3 curb cuts along Kingston Road that serves the existing building, We are keeping the curb cuts, adjusting the width of the curb cuts to make 2 of them as 24 feet wide curb cuts, and the one which exists in the middle is going to be only for an exit driveway. It's not going to be two-way. The other 2 towards the north end of the parking and the south end of the parking will be ingress and egress. However, the one in the middle will be only egress to Kingston Road. And I'm going to explain why we did that, and I have a traffic circulation plan also here that we can go over. As you might be aware that there is an existing easement, access easement, that is shared between the current property owner on 181 Kingston and the apartments to the north of the property. So what we are doing is like we are not touching that easement. That easement is still going to remain as is. And I think while I'm discussing that, I just want to address one comment that we received from Mr. Holloway's office today, is about the curb cut that currently exists. That curb cut, the width of the curb cut shows the existing existing pavement on the property, as well as the 10 feet easement area that serves the next door property. So that's why the drop curb on the northern side of the property, we are not touching it. We are leaving it because there is a 10-foot pavement, asphalt pavement already exists for the next door property. So that's pretty much the parking. We are also adding a trash enclosure, which will be located towards the western property side. And it's a 7 feet by 9 feet trash enclosure. Also, we are proposing all new lighting, LED, solar powered LED lighting throughout the parking area and on the building facade, building mounted lights. Okay, what else? By doing these improvements, I will just quickly go over the zoning chart just to tell you where we are in reference to the bulk requirements on the property. The lot area, we are exceeding the lot area. There are a couple of pre-existing variances. The one I wanted to talk about is the front yard from principal building. The requirement is 35 feet. The current building is 11.9 feet, and which is going to be the same since we are not changing the building. So it's going to remain as 11.9 feet. The other pre-existing variance is the, is the rear yard for principal building. It's 15 feet required, 11.2 feet is existing, and it's going to remain the same. The one variance that we are asking for is the applicant wants to, since we are proposing sidewalk along the south and eastern side of the building, the applicant wants to install a canopy to shade or to shade the, to cover, so that the people who are walking into the facility, they are not directly into the weather and the elements, so they can walk safely without getting hit by the rain or snow. So the canopy setback from the property line is about, it's an 8 feet wide canopy, and it will be about 2.88 feet from the front property line facing Kingston Road. The other pre-existing, is the percent lot coverage by building. Again, it's an existing, 30% is allowed in the zone. The existing building is 31.6%, and since building is not changing, it's going to remain as 31.6. However, we are reducing the percent lot coverage. 80% is allowed. Currently, it's 97.5%, and we are going to reduce it to 95.82%. It's approximately little around 2%. But it's a reduction in the impervious coverage that currently exists. And the reason, again, is like we are taking out all this asphalt from the front of the property that currently is the parking and replacing with grass and evergreen trees. We have a whole row of evergreen to shade or to prevent any acting like a buffer on the property from the adjacent uses. The circulation, the traffic, the pedestrian circulation, the way it works is like the vans in the morning, they will come in. As they come along, they will pull in this area, the first driveway. They can, the size of the vans is like a transit vans, like a Mercedes Sprinter type vans, that they can fit into these 9x18 spaces easily, that they park usually. So it's not an issue as far as the size of the van. They are not like oversized vans. They are regular 14 vehicle like extended vans. So they can park in either in the parking right next to the building, or they can park at the driveway. The passengers or the guests will leave the parking. We have a sidewalk all around the building, and this is all handicap accessible route. It meets the handicap slope requirement for the wheelchairs or as well as the pedestrians, so they can enter through the first door into the building, or if they wish, they can go through the second door and inside the building. As far as the other issue we were talking about, the overnight parking, we anticipate that all the overnight van parking will be, the vans parking will be in this area towards the south side. We have about 10 spaces along the property line and then another 8 spaces. Since we are talking about 12 spaces, so between these two rows of the parking, we have ample space to park these vans overnight. Okay.
The 9x18 parking spaces are big enough for the vans?
The vans they use, it's usually what they employ, like 9x18, they can fit in those spaces. Okay, as far as the traffic circulation, we have a couple of depictions or pictorial views of the traffic circulation. One with the garbage removal truck or garbage truck, one with the box truck like a FedEx and UPS type trucks, and then of course the passenger cars. And
when the vans come back after having picked up the passengers, where are they being dropped off to go into the facility?
They will be dropped off right in the front aisle here, where the van, like the first driveway.
So then they have to walk along the whole
Yeah,
front of the building.
actually the door is right here. The first door is right here.
Oh, so that's the door that they can go in.
They can go in, so basically it's just this travel path that they need before they get into the building.
Is there any queue of those vans that are going to be on the street?
No, like again, if they, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 vans
Well,
come.
he says they all get there at the same time.
Within 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes. So let's say if there are 3 or 4 vans at one time. So what they can do is like they can park into these handicap accessible aisles, right? Accessible spaces. So 2 vans can park there and they can let their passengers out. Whereas the other vans, we still have another 5 spaces along the building side. So they can park in and let their passengers out in that area.
But you don't anticipate any queuing on Kingston Road?
No, I don't anticipate, and the reason is that, like again, we have enough parking for the vans to drop off and then leave, or if need to be, like they can always come pull into the parking lot, and we can wait in the areas that are not utilized by either impacting the circulation or within the way of the driving.
So
maneuvering.
realistically speaking, nobody's really going to use that second door. All that volume of delivered people is just going to file through one door, and that's going to be able to handle it?
I would say it's like, I would say it's like 60-70%. The reason we have another door, if somebody needs, and it's an emergency also as far as the requirement, we have to have 2 handicap accessible entrance and exit from the building. And also the other reason is like we are showing a loading and unloading space on the property here. So as Mr. Mehta mentioned, like they have food coming in and things like that. So they can use this door also to take it to the warming kitchen.
How big is that first door that's taking all of the pedestrian traffic?
It's about 6 feet wide. It's like a double
door on the whole left side of that building?
Right
there, yeah.
There is one door. It's a small door, like a regular size door.
It's a 6-foot door.
Yeah, this one is 6 foot and this one is 6 foot.
And then there's one around the corner. Right?
There are 2 in the back and then one in.
But next to the bottom left corner?
Right
there's
here. One here.
On either side of the corner? Or
there's only
No, there's one on this side, on the southern side, and then,
So essentially, everybody's going in through that one door.
Why not make the main entrance near the parking area and drop-off area? I mean,
Not there.
it's
yeah,
like
you mean here?
yeah,
that
so
wall.
Yeah, that side of the
either
yeah.
facing the parking lot or in
And
that
you could have a
corner.
couple doors
Yeah,
there.
rather than facing Kingston.
Then you
is
wouldn't-
that,
then-
could you have that entrance door just
Then you wouldn't need
relocated?
the sidewalk and the.
Just for
counter.
everyone's information, there's sheet A1.00 in the package shows the architectural floor plan, and it shows the vestibule door.
Yeah, but that's not
And
really
on that
done.
side is an activity director and an owner's room. So it looks like they could adjust it if it was.
Mr. Maida just whispered to me that the plans that you have are the plans that the state approved. So if we're gonna change the plans, we gotta get a new license.
That's the interior.
That's not what your license said. It said you have to go back and talk to them.
Yeah. So,
That's not a
I
new
mean, that,
license. That's
I'm
not a new
concerned
license.
that, it took a while to get that license, so.
It is, I mean, the volume of, like, all the people that are walking in the, makes your earlier testimony seem very unrealistic in regards to the time it takes to deboard your passengers and
Perhaps
start
explain
your
it.
operational day.
Explain how it works in Whippany. What kind of entrance door do you have in Whippany?
But, right.
Yeah.
I'm
Right
curious
now-
how many doors you have available to intake
Right now
all
in
this
Whitney,
clientele.
we have one door like that one. A little bit bigger than that, 36 inches, and everybody goes in within 15 minutes. I know it sounds unrealistic, but that's how it works. Even food, a lot of people ask me, how do you serve 100 people and finish up with the food within half an hour? We have a system. We've been doing this for 10 years. In 30 minutes, everybody served, eat, the plates are thrown away, and the cleaning starts in 30 minutes. Because everything is very well disciplined with the drivers, everybody. So it works right now in Whitney, we use the side door.
I think our part of our question is, if we're making this analogy to the Whippany place, is that door located so close to the road to Algonquin that you have a backup or a queue? Because our concern here is the vans, and I know you gave an explanation, but that just logically, there's going to be a backup that has to spill onto the street. I think that's our biggest concern.
And also the unloading of people as they
Passengers
come
right
out
there
and
as vans are
vehicles
pulling
going
in,
by.
correct.
So you may want to bring in the vans to the far left and bring them around the parking lot, down and out.
Face them, yeah.
Do you appreciate what that suggestion was?
Uh,
To have the vans go in the furthest
left side,
le-
yeah.
and then pull in, arrive towards Kingston, drop off, so that there'll be a natural queue on the side.
That's not a problem, because right now, that's one of the reason is the circulation. That's why we showed it, like these two driveways, the southern driveway and the northern driveway, they are two-way access. So that's not at all a problem, like, so we can post a sign like van entrance at the thing, like, and then of course, like when they're going to work.
Wait a minute, these people work
Yeah,
here. They don't need signs.
No, but that will be on the administration to enforce that. So they have to make sure that they tell their drivers that they cannot enter the site from this thing, this driveway, and make them go around the loop, and then, yeah, if there's any queuing.
That
it
forces
puts
the
it
queue
aside.
into the
No,
parking lot.
I agree, yeah, we can do that. And again, it's going to be on the applicant to make sure it's enforced.
One of the things we didn't do is the date of that map is,
What's the
This-
date
you're
of this map?
testifying to?
It's dated November 11th, 2019.
And while we're all changing the entrance and exit, the sidewalk that you're proposing along the front of the building, it just doesn't seem to have any function. I can see the sidewalk on the either end, where you have the loading, and the sidewalk up wherever the doors end up, but it just seems like more pavement and just a waste of money.
Yeah.
I can see you doing
Between the two
something with a
doors.
canopy to give relief to that front wall, over windows just for sunscreen or whatever it might be. The other part is the sidewalk along Kingston, you don't show it on your plan. We got sidewalk all up and down Kingston, but not where you're gonna remove the pavement.
Yeah, we can
Is
add.
that a mistake?
Yeah, I would say like, yeah, we can show the sidewalk. The idea there is like we are going with the green space all the way up to the curb line. But yeah, if you need to, we can add a sidewalk
I
along it,
think
yeah.
it makes sense, seeing you have sidewalk all through that neighborhood.
Yeah, that can be done,
The
yes.
other thing is the landscaping plan, I would like to discuss, but I don't think you have your planner here tonight.
No. Oh.
So you're gonna need to carry this anyway, is that correct?
Well, no, we were anticipating, given that
come
we
on,
got those.
don't do that again.
You gotta be kidding me. It's, given
Oh,
the fact that,
my God.
yeah, given the
No.
variances, it is a use variance, but given this, the uniqueness of this use, the state license, it's recognized as inherently beneficial, so.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I mean, we could get McDonough to come here and say it, but.
You have a question on landscaping?
You have a question? Yeah, I do. I think can be improved upon.
We would be
The
amenable.
lining up of the arborvitae's along the front
It's
certainly doesn't relate to anything along that strip, in that area. I don't think your client would be really happy with it, once it's gonna establish, you block out his little building.
Actually, it's one of the suggestions we got from our client, or the applicant wants like more like a buffer or screening.
I think you
from the
can,
thing,
I
yeah.
think you can achieve that. I think you can make the front, that limited front yard space into a very attractive landscaped area. But I think lining up a bunch of arborvitae's is not the way to do it.
We would be amenable to working with the board and its professionals to come up with a landscaping plan that works. for the
Not your
town.
forest.
Yeah.
Is there some function that I'm missing on suggesting you get rid of that concrete sidewalk along the entire front of the building? Is there
Let me ask you,
something?
Mr. Maida, do you anticipate using the sidewalk that connects the two handicap accessible doors? Do you anticipate using that for your business? Like, what was
They're
the
gonna come
thinking?
in, they're gonna come in one end, they're gonna, the food truck.
If people walks around, sometimes they want to summer.
Well, they'll have the sidewalk in the
come
street
out,
now,
But
yeah.
They don't want them to be on the grass or.
What Mr. Chadwick is saying is that there's gonna be the public sidewalk on Kingston that they could walk.
But we don't want to go there, we don't want them to go. on the
Then
street.
they're not supposed to go on
Yeah, they're
the,
not
outside the
supposed to go on
facility.
street. And if they walk on grass, we are worried they might sprain ankle something.
Okay.
So it's much better, it's something solid they can.
So that's
if they are
that's
walking.
an outside exercise area.
Effectively, it's for
Usually they don't go, but to be on a safe side.
No, but if
They're
you
not
were to,
supposed
if
to
you
go
were
outside.
to need to evacuate the building and maybe you have to do fire drills, I don't know.
Yes,
They'd
something-
have to come out that back door.
Yes.
And then to your point, you're worried about
Yeah,
elderly
the grass
people
in
on
the
the
front,
grass
they
and
can
tripping
sprain their
over a
ankle or
stick.
something, so something solid
Yeah.
is much better connected
get
to
that.
places.
I mean, if
I
they're
mean,
coming
it's
out of the
gonna cost
building,
us.
they're gonna go into the street. They're gonna get away from the building. I mean, they may be old, but it doesn't mean they're stupid.
Right.
Right?
It's getting late.
Yeah.
It is.
Have you received the updated engineering?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it is, yes.
I just had two items, a fence along the south side, is that a possibility to shield the adjoining neighbors from the cars and the vans parking?
There is an existing chain link fence on the neighbor's
Right,
property.
But
Yeah.
the chain link isn't gonna stop
Yeah.
the headlight glare.
Yeah, no, we can add the fence. That's not a problem. It will be on the curb, like curb mounted.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
but
right.
that can be added on.
Where is the school? School is behind this.
The school is like this lot right here, or to the
But there is a-
west, yeah.
There is a proper, like a link, means like anything separation from the school?
barrier?
Barrier,
There is a fence, the existing chain link fence. So, yeah.
so nobody can.
Yeah, that's going to remain, yes.
Or the elders cannot go to school.
That's the property owner's fence.
And what's the condition of that fence?
It's in a good condition.
It's not rusty?
No, it's not.
Describe the driveway entrance nearest the building. The aisle doesn't seem to be lined up with the driveway curb cut, and that was my biggest concern.
This one?
No, the other one.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, it is like, let's see. Let me.
And there's a storm
Yes.
inlet there, if I'm not mistaken, that may need to be adjusted.
This inlet, yes. Yeah, I think, yeah. Let me just
So they may have to adjust the storm inlet to be like a driveway inlet.
It doesn't go on.
And then actually move the curb cut a little bit. I know you want to keep them, but it really should line up with the aisle.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that can be done, yes.
Are you talking about lighting, or is that someone else?
No, the lighting, again, what we are proposing is, as I mentioned, is solar panel LED lights. And we have like sheet C-43 depicts the lighting intensity and lighting contours along the side. Like we have, let's see, a combination of building mounted light fixtures along the frontage, and then on the side of the building, and then few light poles in the parking lot.
Those will be on all night long?
They don't have to be. They can be set on a timer. Because again, at 8,
Storing your vans there, you're not gonna.
we need minimum safety lighting. So
there will
they
be
can be,
lights on
yeah. So yeah, we can maybe shut off few lights and leave a couple of lights on where the vans will be parked in the back.
And what's to the left there?
It's a single family home there. There's a
And those
residence.
lights aren't, and 3 in the morning aren't going to intrude on their way of life?
No, they are all fully cut off light fixtures and downward throw.
And if they put a fence there, I think that's
Yeah.
gonna help also.
Yeah.
Fence.
A
for
solid
the light
fence.
poles?
Yeah.
For
no,
the
the
light
fence
pole,
will-
they up a little bit, and it's definitely will cut down the glare.
Just worry about spillage over the fence on the second floor of that single family home.
They're all downward throw. Like if you look at it, I think we have a picture, like they are fully cut off from the side, so they only just throw the lights downwards.
How tall are the poles?
They are, I think, 8 feet, but let me just double check.
8's not tall. To the right?
Van height is on the right.
To the right, there's a box with a lamp on it there?
The building mounted light fixtures are 8 feet. Pole mounted are, sorry, they are 15 feet. Yeah. They are 15 feet high.
How tall are the foundations sticking out? I'm just trying to look at the conflict between the vehicles and the light posts.
Yeah, they have to be, like again, we want to bring them up at least 24 inch or 36 inches above the ground.
Would it be like a concrete?
Concrete, yeah, like a regular foundation for the light poles. So it will, like, say if you bring it 3 feet, then 12 feet pole and a 3 feet foundation.
That won't be a conflict for the vans? They'll be able to still negotiate those?
I hope so, yeah, because again, like if you look at it, like the lights where we are proposing, we are proposing the light fixtures where the lines are. So it's like typical, like if you go to like any shopping malls or whatever, they have these light poles at the intersection of the parking spaces.
Right, that's not
So-
gonna cut off the size of 4 parking spaces?
No, it's going to be like if it's like an 18-inch foundation, 18-inch diameter. So you're talking about 4 inches protruding into each space, 4.5.
On the left-hand side, you said there's a fence there, or you're gonna put another fence up? No.
Right.
No, the left with
Left.
there's Chaz Holloway suggested you put in a board on board to provide screening for the that's acceptable.
That's fine. Yeah. Currently, there is an existing chain link fence, but that's on the neighbor's property.
Okay, so you agreed to a fence. Could there be trees that are planted there that could grow so it cuts down on any light or or noise?
We don't have much room there. Like it's pretty much right at the property line.
Does the residence has?
Yeah, but
has-
that's on their property. Yeah. Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
hardly see the house, there are already trees.
Yeah, they have shrubbery on their side along that property line.
Is there any room to put any plantings there or no?
No.
So, unless the board has any further question of Mr. Khan, I believe we've covered. I think we also addressed the comments or requests in Mr. Holloway's report, his updated letter.
So you're gonna comply with all the,
Yes.
all the experts' reports?
Yes. And
comments?
again, with respect to landscaping, since it has to be revised, we'll work with the board to come up with an acceptable landscape planning plan.
And we could show the awning or canopy also on the revised?
Yeah, I think Mr. Chadwick, he wanted as part of the presumably an approval, a rendering showing the canopy, the architecture, so that he has an idea what it's gonna look like.
Will
So-
there be any signage on the canopy, any decorations?
We're not planning on it. Again, it's not the type of, if you drive by Algonquin, you have to really strain your eyes to see the little tiny wall sign. It's not, there's not intended to be like, come on in type of a sign. That's just not.
Yeah, I
its
mean, I
purpose.
think we gotta be careful in this area. That's very different than Algonquin. Algonquin is more commercial in this area. This area is a little bit more, it's residential and it's more intimate. So, yeah, I'd be curious if there are
Yeah.
plans in regards to that.
But if
on
there
it.
is gonna be a sign, the plan is
If
whatever.
you tell me that you put a 2 feet sign, we'll put a 2 feet, because sign is not gonna affect our business, if you said, but one small sign has to be there because people will know we exist over there, this is the business. So whatever sign is,
But you haven't come up with a sign idea yet.
we haven't.
Do you have a location where you're gonna put the sign?
No, we haven't.
So-
So whatever the city says, okay, you can only put.
Whatever the B4 zone allows for signs, they'll.
I'm sorry?
Whatever the B4 zone
Right.
requires for
I don't think-
signage, you're gonna comply with.
I don't think this use needs a size, I mean, B4 zone allows 1.5 square feet for 80% of the frontage, I think.
Well, that's
But
for,
you get a
that's
bigger
for,
size
yeah,
sign.
that's intended for retail.
Yeah.
Which this is not it.
Right.
So we would be amenable to, if the board wants to be comprehensive, to put a restriction in as to it can't be more than 10 square feet or something, and if we have to exceed that, we're gonna come back to the board. But again, the size, how big is your sign in Algonquin?
4 feet, I think,
4 feet long by 6
long
inches?
by- It's all finished right now, because we
It's an
did that.
industrial
Because sign is not important to us at all.
Are you gonna put a number on the, building?
Yes, we're gonna put the number.
Are there any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given? I hear none, see none. You have other witnesses?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
What about planner?
No planner, unfortunately.
I think planner is absolutely necessary. It's a D variance.
Yeah.
It's a use variance.
The use variance, what we're hoping is that since the state issued the license, and given this use has been recognized as inherently beneficial.
But the license that from the state has nothing to do with planning.
Yeah.
And this right here, they have to also do other things. This is just like almost a preliminary.
Yeah.
This is not the actual license, because after they come and inspect, they could deny the facility, so they have to license the facility. All they did is looked at your, architecturals and whatnot and said.
You're saying it's okay to go ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
I
appreciate that.
I think it's a significant use that I think we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't get
Yeah.
planning testimony.
If the
Comments?
Yeah.
board,
Berkowitz,
absolutely.
we
Chadwick?
can bring a planner.
No, bring me
Yeah.
into it.
Snyder?
Yeah, one question, and
Well, are we talking about?
did the neighbors get noticed in regards to the change of use for this party since the last we visited this?
They have.
I just want to make sure, because I
200
Well, we
feet.
had to get notice.
Had to get noticed.
I just want to make sure,
Okay.
because I remember the public attendance, when the other applicant was here. So I just want to make sure. Yep, I agree.
Well, if we were to go forward, were we gonna vote to approve the site plan tonight too, or is that gonna be separate?
I think we should wait for the planner.
Because I still have
I
site
want to
plan
hear it
questions.
all. I'm not doing this thing.
There's a lot
piecemeal.
of changes to the plan, they're not moving the building around, not moving the parking, but they're moving the circulation. I'd like to talk with the engineer a little bit more about the sidewalk in the front and not in the front. I just think there's a lot more, at this juncture, I just think it's irrelevant.
Yeah, well, I
Makes sense.
have questions about later using the existing main entrance, because it just seems to be, because it just happens to be there, you're gonna use it.
Ms. Jolie, do we have a date?
Yes, we do, February 26th.
February 26th?
February 26th.
I should be there.
Why is it so late? You got,
It's not the third.
you got what you call it in that month.
So,
you have, what's it called? Ash Wednesday.
And Valentine's.
Yeah, the Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
I am good on the 26th. Do I have a motion to carry this case to February 26th without further notice? And you will provide us with whatever extensions are necessary? I don't need to put that in writing, do I?
I'll put it on the record that we will
Some-
extend, yes.
Some applicants needed it in writing, they didn't understand,
So moved.
Okay, is there a second, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So we don't meet for 2 weeks now, right?
Yeah, the 18th.
How's our agenda on the 18th, Nora?
7-11.
Is it really?
Yep. Yeah, that's what we
Is that being
stated.
heard, or
Wait,
is that, are
it
they
went
going
away?
for another delay until next year?
He was hoping churches would go away.
I would be totally appalled if they did not show up on the 18th.
No, he's not gonna want to.
For some reason, I thought that the last meeting it was discussed that we were gonna, they were
Carry it to
coming
the
on the
18th.
18th to get a date for next year.
Yes. So we don't have 7-Eleven next meeting.
It's a
I
technicality.
thought we stayed that to December.
Yeah,
Say
we're here.
to carry it to next year.
It's
No,
it's December to carry it to next year.
Gotcha. So
Gotcha.
that's the only,
So what
that's,
do we have next
so are we going out for drinks?
Well, I'm just hoping we're not gonna have a crazy agenda.
Well, isn't that the only thing on the agenda?
Drinks?
No, the 7-Eleven.
Oh, drinks I can go for. 7-Eleven.
By the way, we adjourned. Your recording's off, right?
Okay, we have Littleton Road, carries December 18th. Oh, that's just to carry that case.
Right,
We
on the
have
18th.
Devin Cavalieri, that looks like an easy one.